Hello and welcome to this week's track ad on Japan. My name is Fraser, but first of all, some quick facts about the track. We have one DRS zone, which is on the start-finish straight, but the DRS detection zone is just before the last chicane, so there's going to be some strategy involved in getting that when you're trying to overtake. We also have the C3, C2, C1 tires, C3 being soft, C1 being hard, but due to the nature of the track, you're going to have quite a lot of difficulties keeping those tires cool. So we will probably have a bit of variation between soft to medium or soft to hard. I haven't done any practice races yet, so I can't really tell you when to pit. So you all know the drill. After the hot lap has finished, I will talk about it. After that, the setup, and at the end, I'm going to show you the hot lap in its own. So I will hear you in a minute. So starting to talk about the lap. For starting your lap, you want to cut as much as possible on this curb right here out of the last chicane. Very important is to stay more to the left than to the right, because on the left you don't need to immediately like turn into the right, which then unsettles your car. Um, like going more to the left also enables you to go on full throttle much earlier. Let the car wash out wide right here, so as to not unsettle it and not to spin the car. Then opening up the DRS, coming to turn 1. So on the left hand side you will see an escape road, a tarmac escape road. As soon as you are approaching that, you already want to start turning in. Then you want to start braking as soon as this red and white curb on the right hand side ends. Very important is you see me not like pressing the brakes 100%. If you press the brakes 100% right here, as you are still applying steering angle, you're going to look up or you're going to understeer quite a lot if you have ABS on. Then down to like fourth gear, if you notice that you might be too fast still for the turn, go down to third gear, as that is called like the ref limiter essentially slows down the car, or it's essentially something like trail braking. Then get as close to the inside right here. As you also can notice, try to stay in the inside right here because the first two turns are heavily on cambered. Then as soon as you reach about halfway mark of this red and white curb, start to accelerate, and as you are approaching right here, you can already go full throttle. Be very careful not to lose the car. I recommend you do it like me, just keep the steering straight for a second so you can actually build up speed. More speed equals more downforce equals more time gained because you have a better exit. Then for the first part of the S's, very important, every S is on cambered. The very important thing is don't touch the curb on the inside first. Then second, as you come out of this on-cambered part, don't be too far to the left and on the exit, otherwise the rear will spin around. You can also kind of play with the differential with this in the setup. You can have a bit of higher differential, so you have a bit more stable car, but that means the car is going to be a bit more understeery through here. So key thing is don't be too much to the inside on the exit right here, otherwise you'll spin. Then wash out a bit wide right here onto the middle of the track, then get as close as possible on the inside right here. It is fine to touch that curb, but as soon as you touch it, you can see me just being a bit more tentative on the steering input, because if you steer too much into the corner, you're going to spin the car. Then around here, fifth gear, just keep it in fifth gear. Bit of brake application as well, because you're too fast. If you don't brake and just lift, you're going to end up in the gravel or grass on the left outside here. So a dab on the brakes, keep it in fifth gear. Try to be really fast on the throttle again as soon as you like approaching the red and white curb, the end of that. About 10 meters before that, you already want to start accelerating. Then on the left right here, don't hit that curb as well. You want to, before this part of the S, you want to take the car a bit to the right, so you can like load up the right hand side tires for this left hander. It's very important because then, as you can see, you can carry a bit more speed through here. Never try not to lift off. Try not to hit the red and white curb as well. If you lift off, you're going to lose a lot of time. Try to have the throttle at about 40-30%, just so you carry a lot of speed through here. A lot, like some people are like me at the beginning. I lifted quite a lot like during this part, so I lost a lot of time, but it's really important that you actually push the throttle a tiny bit. Then, as you're like going on the exit, be really careful not to be on the throttle too harsh. Again, same as with the first part of the SS, you don't want to be too much on the inside when you're starting to accelerate again, because you're going to spin the car. So let the car wash out wide again, up to 6th gear, if you want to have a bit more stability, so you would like prevent going actually like to prevent spinning the car. Then the inside on here is on cambered as well, just a slight amount of brakes. You want to keep your minimum speed up. It's also slightly on cambered, not as heavily on cambered as the first part of the Essos. Then get really eager on the throttle again as soon as you like lift off or like dab on the brakes. You already want to start thinking, okay, I need to accelerate. Then for Dunlop, again, same as with this part. You want to kind of steer to the right a bit more than the racing line suggests, that you load up the tires. That's the same you are going to do for Dunlop. You are going to be more to the right than the racing line, and then you want to sweep into the left because your right hand side tires are going to be loaded up. Very important. Inside is on cambered yet again. 6th gear. You can also, before you even come to the corner, go into 6th gear just to have that extra stability. Very important though. Get as close to the red and white curb as possible. If you touch that, you're going to spin. Just watch out for that. Then on the exit, or like halfway around this red and white curb, you want to just lift off a tiny bit because that's like the most likely part where you're going to spin. So just 75% of throttle, and as soon as you notice like the car not trying to spin, like you can notice it at the like listening to the RPM, so like the like engine noise. If it's like going to very high pitch, then you need to immediately lift off the throttle if you're not already spun around. So be really careful around here. In the race, it's also probably going to be a lift. I know that in last year's game it was flat if you like took a really wide line into here. But then again, coming out of Dunlop, be really careful not to get on the outside of this, like on this red and white curb. If you go like half of the car on this red and white curb onto the green AstroTurf, you need to immediately, as soon as you like have this part of the track which leads onto the short part of Suzuka, you need to immediately steer to the left. Then smooth steering inputs to the left right here gains you a couple of hundreds. Okay, so coming to Degner 1, after the 50 meter bot, we want to start turning in. Just a really small, like a tiny dab on the brakes, just to have a bit more turning. Then down to 6th gear, completely mount that curb if possible. After you mounted the curb, you already want to go onto the throttle again, full throttle onto this curb. You can go as far as I did right here, red hand side tires onto the white line. Very important is that like 5 to 10 meters before the red and white curb ends, you already want to start braking. Also important is that we are going downhill into an on-cambered zone, so you need to think, okay, downhill, more weight on the front tires, it's easier to lock up, especially if you have ABS on, you're going to understeer quite a lot. So you can also keep the left-hand side tire on the dirt for a better like entry angle into Degner 2. You can clip the inside curb like a bit more than I did right here, which is okay, as long as you get the exit right. For the exit, as soon as you pass the red and white curb, you already want to go into 4th gear. Be very careful with accelerating on this. The car can easily spin out. Fun fact, if you are outside of bounds right here, you can just stay out of bounds until you get under the bridge and then return to the track. That doesn't give you like a track invalidation. Again, CodeMess is just messing up the track limit detection system, but like tell me something new, I guess. Okay, on the exit, be very careful on the red and white curb. Have your left-hand side tires on that green AstroTurf, and then steady acceleration. Coming to the hairpin is very heavily on-cambered, kind of reminiscent of Zandvoort, like the heavy banked turn of Zandvoort, turn 3i or turn 4i, I think. Um, so what you want to do is, before you get to that right-hander, you want to upshift to 7th. Then as soon as you are straightening the car out, you already want to start braking. Down to 3rd gear. Very important is to pick your acceleration, like when you start to accelerate, quite smartly, which is about like 2/3 into the red and white curb. Ideally, I kind of went a bit late on the acceleration, which then cost me about like a couple of hundreds. Very important though, be very careful with the acceleration. Easy to spin out, especially in the race. If you have those soft medium tires on, they're going to be very, very like overheated, especially after the S's, after Dunlop, after Decna 1 and Decna 2. So very careful with throttle application. Then get around the outside, because on the outside you have even terrain. On the inside it's still a bit on-cambered, so it's easier to spin. So try to get close to that red and white curb so you can accelerate in a better manner, since the track is even. Then up to 5th gear, 6th gear, just try to stay close to the right here, as to gain a couple of hundreds. Then spoon corner after the 50-meter board, kind of like 10 meters after that. Keep it in 7th gear, because you don't really need to go into 8th gear. It's not really that necessary. Down to 5th gear, dodge the inside red and white curb. Very important. That also automatically spins you around. Very not as enjoyable as last year, to be honest. Then coming out wide, have the middle of the car on the red and white curb. You can go a bit further, but then the game tends to invalidate you as soon as you have the left-hand side wheel like half on the white line, which is kind of weird since you still have the wheel on the white line, but I digress. Then around like 10 to 20 meters before the red and white curb ends, you want to already start thinking about turning in. Down to 3rd gear. As soon as you come to the green AstroTurf on the inside, just before that you already want to accelerate up to 4th gear, maybe even to 5th, to have that extra stability. A very difficult zone right here, because it's on camber right here, and it's getting off camber on the exit, so it's very easy to spin out, especially since you're going downhill, more on the more grip on the front but less grip on the rear. So be very careful with the acceleration. You can go fully on the throttle as soon as you have a bit more straighter steering input. Then you can also use the exit right here. You wouldn't go as far as right hand side wheel after the green white AstroTurf. Then for this little straight right here, stay to the left. Then as soon as you approach the left hand side Rolex sign, right here, you want to just let the car steer itself into the racing line for 130R, as to not bleed off any speed. For 130R in these cars completely flat. A small tip for you: try to cut as much of this little part as possible and stay to the left. That gains you a couple of hundreds as well. Last chicane, as soon as you come to the 100-meter board, you want to start braking. Down to 3rd gear, cut as much of that first part as possible, and try not to go too deep as I did right here, because then, as you are about to see, I need to apply braking just so I make sure that I can actually make this corner. So ideally, you wouldn't have those bollards here. You probably would hit the bollards if you did it right. Down to 3rd gear, immediately turn into the left, cut as much as possible right here as well, and then again, you need to think about having the car as much to the left as soon as you start accelerating, because this gives you more grip. And then start turning in. Be very careful on the, as you can see, be very careful on the right hand side. It's very easy to lose the car or oversteer into the car, and then you T-bone this orange pit entry absorption thingy, I guess. Then to gain another 5 to 600, stay on the inside right here, and that is a lap around Japan. around Suzuka. Okay, let's talk about the setup. So 10-7 wings, you can also go 10-8, but then again, the car is going to feel very understeery. You would much rather go to the differential and try to play with the differential for the race or for a quali. 80% differential is quite deadly in my opinion for the S's as well as Spoon. So you might want to increase that to 82, 83%. 83 is a pretty good like sweet spot for me. Then 54% off throttle diff as to not like spin the car when you're lifting off in the S's as well. Then suspension geometry, you have like left. No, not suspension. Where is it? Suspension geometry. Do we see it? Yeah, there we go. So right, left, left, left. You can increase a bit of front toe if you want to. Then suspension, we have 1.6, 1.1, 2.7. So you wouldn't you shouldn't really increase the rear anti-roll bar because it gives you much more oversteer into the S's. Again, try to play with the differential a bit. That is going to gain you a lot more. Brakes, 150, and tires are all to the right to give you like that initial turn and grip instead of like the prolonged grip. And that is the setup. So thank you guys for watching. If you've learned something, that is absolutely great. Next week, I think we are going to be going to Bahrain. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and we will hopefully see each other on the racetrack.